everyone, and welcome to this series on meeting Jesus. My name is Ross, and I'm just one of the pastors here at Trinity Church. And I said last week, in the video that was released last week, that if you're interested in investigating God, and is there a God, and how can I know God, I said I thought the best way to do that was to investigate the man Jesus Christ, because he claimed to be God, and he lived and he acted and did things, and then he died and rose again to show that he was who he said he was. Now, if that's true, that's just got to be looked into, I reckon, don't you? If there was someone around today who claimed to be God and was doing some astounding things, and then they died, and everyone who was around them said they rose again, it'd have to be worth investigating. And I'm pretty sure Jesus is worth investigating. And I'm really hoping that this series of short videos will help you to do that. What we'll be doing is looking at the life of Jesus in just one book from the Bible, and that is the book of Mark. So there are four books in the Bible that speak about the life of Jesus: Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, and Mark's the shortest and the easiest, I think, to read. So you may want to read Mark's Gospel. It's a great place to start. And in fact, if you don't have one of these, and this is obviously not the whole Bible, it's just Mark, if you haven't got one of these, we'd be happy to send you one, and you can just contact us through our website, trinitychurch.com.au. We'd be happy to send one to you, as long as you don't live in Antarctica or something like that. If you're in Tamworth, we can drop it in, no problems as well. That would be easy. Well, what do you think about hypocrites? Most Australians don't like hypocrites, except of course when we're hypocritical. We're not. It's a lot easier to see it in others, but I imagine you're like the rest of us, in that you don't like hypocrites very much. And during the COVID-19 lockdown here in Australia, and I imagine in other places around the world as well, there is a couple of occasions when politicians or leaders, particularly like health leaders, gave instructions to us as a society: do not travel anywhere. And then it was found later on that they had travelled themselves. Or in one case, do not go on holidays, and it was found out that they went on holidays. And that always goes down well, and we like it when that's exposed and people are shown to be hypocritical, because we say, well, you can't say one thing and then you have your own rules. Like, my holiday house really needed the washer changing, so I had to go and spend 3 weeks with my family changing the washer. It doesn't ring true. We don't like hypocrites. So we cheer when they're exposed, except when they're us. We don't cheer then. Well, second question, what do you think about power-hungry oppressors? Those who get into power and then use laws and rules to maintain their power and to oppress people. Is that a stupid question? I imagine, again, you don't like them very much. And I don't think any of us do. And in fact, we do cheer when people like that are confronted and publicly exposed, even though that can sometimes be a hard thing to do. Well, in Jesus' day, there was an issue not unlike that. God had said to the nation of Israel that they were to have a day of rest. It was to be the seventh day. Every 7 days they would have a day of rest. For them, that was what they called the Sabbath day, which was a Saturday. And so from that law that God had given to that nation, over time, the leaders of that nation, the spiritual leaders, had put lots of other laws around that law. And the other laws had become quite oppressive. And I'm not entirely sure that those in power kept those laws in the way that they expected others to, as we'll see in the bit from Mark's Gospel we'll look at. But because they were powerful and because they were respected and because they had the ability to throw people out of the community, they had quite a bit of power. People didn't tend to speak up, and they certainly didn't seek to expose them. Everyone gets nervous when there's someone with that sort of clout around. Anyway, this is from chapter 3 of Mark's Gospel, and it's an incident that happens against that background. Another time, Jesus went into the synagogue. So it's the seventh day. That was the day that you went to the synagogue, so it's the Saturday. And a man with a shriveled hand was there. Now, this man, I don't know exactly what he had, but his hand is shriveled and absolutely useless. And he happens to be there. But listen to this. Some of them, okay, and that he's talking there about those leaders, those oppressive leaders in the community. Some of them were there looking for a reason to accuse Jesus. So they watched him closely to see if he would heal the man on the Sabbath. Now, can you imagine being there? I mean, it's a small community. You probably know the man with the shriveled hand. And you probably know how desperate he is. You know that he can't work properly. He can't earn a living. You'll know how long it's been like that. You'll know what it means to him to have this shriveled hand. You'll know that Jesus has done some of the most astounding things. Or you've heard rumours of it and you wonder whether he could do anything about this man. But you know it's a Sabbath. And you know that the heavies are there. And you know you're not allowed to work. And you've got a feeling that healing someone on the Sabbath is work. And so I think probably in your mind you think, I wish someone had stand up to these guys. And if Jesus can heal this man, why won't they let him do it? But you're probably too frightened to say anything. Now it wasn't God's law that you couldn't heal on the Sabbath. God said it was to be a day of rest. But then people put laws around it that made it harder and harder to do things and became more and more oppressive. And therefore Jesus wasn't meant to heal according to these other laws. Anyway, you listen to what he does. I mean, what would you have done? This is what Jesus does. Then Jesus asked them, okay, he's talking directly to them. And listen to his question, it's a great question. Which is lawful on the Sabbath? To do good or to do evil? To save life or to kill it? And it's a great question, because what are they going to answer? And if they say, well, you should do good, and he heals the man, well, then what can they say? And surely they can't say, well, you should do evil on the day God said you can have a rest. That's so ridiculous. And so he traps them in their own hypocrisy and exposes them. And listen, this is what they say. This is their response. But they remained silent. Now, they might have remained silent, but I reckon everyone in the synagogue that day was smirking and certainly cheering under their breath. And it was nice, I reckon, that they could see Jesus put these guys in their place, like they've never seen them put in their place. And then it goes on. Jesus looked around at them in anger and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts. They're more concerned with their prestige and to maintain their power than they are concerned with people. And that deeply saddens Jesus when he sees such ugliness. And Jesus said to the man with the withered hand, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out and his hand was completely restored. And you can just hear the cheering, I reckon. Not only has Jesus shown these guys up to be the hypocrites that they are, and exposed them, but he's also healed the man right in front of them all. And what's their response? Okay, so Jesus is healed on the Sabbath, and he's not allowed to do that according to these men. Then the Pharisees, that's the name of the group, went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. So you're allowed to plan how to kill someone on the Sabbath, but you're not allowed to heal someone. So they answered their own question. You are allowed to do evil on the Sabbath. You just can't do any good. That's pretty exposing, isn't it? Jesus did that sort of thing all the time. He exposes corruption and hypocrisy, and he shows what it means to truly follow God. And he does it at risk to himself. He sticks up for the little guy. I tell you, you'd like Jesus if you met him. You may have met some really horrible Christians along the way, I don't know. But I tell you, you'd like Jesus if you met him. He sticks up for the little guy, even at considerable risk to himself. And it was a risky thing to do, and now they're out to kill him. Now, you can't move past the fact that Jesus has just done a miracle, and Jesus does a fair few of them as well while on earth. And he does the miracles because he wants to show you and me with great clarity that he is who he claims to be. He does things that only God could possibly do to show you that when he says he is God, when he says he is the Son of God, he's not mucking around. He really is who he claims to be. Well, that's this next session in meeting Jesus. There is just one more thing to point out. It's if you do read Mark's Gospel, see if you can find if Jesus is a hypocrite anywhere. I mean, he exposes hypocrites, and what you find is at no point does he say one thing and do another. He's not a hypocrite. It's quite astounding, really. And in fact, he says in one part, forgive your enemies, forgive those who persecute you. And then as his enemies are nailing him to the cross, he says to God the Father, forgive them. Now, that's practicing what you preach, isn't it? I'm sure you'd like Jesus if you met him. You can meet him by reading about him in Mark's Gospel, or why not keep listening to these short videos. I hope they're of a great benefit to you as you consider who Jesus is.